Using someone else's money to have fun is the best. Good luck with the payments. After enduring my husband's reckless behavior for so long, the divorce was finally settled. However, it seemed he had committed crimes far more serious than I had been aware of. Since the beginning of our marriage, he has been selfish in all his actions. I regretted marrying such a man, but now it was too late to lament my past decisions. The additional crimes spouted by my irresponsible husband were too much. Indeed, they were more than I could handle. That's precisely why he needs to experience the full extent of pain. My name is Emily, a housewife in her 50s. I live with my husband, John. My father is an executive at a large company, and John was working in the same company to succeed my father. To be honest, my father is still hesitant about whether to officially make John his successor. The reason for his hesitation is John's character. John, look at this. This happened because you left tissue paper in your pocket when you put your clothes in the laundry. In my hand were the trousers John often wore. However, they were now covered with white lint. The clothes were in this state because John had left used tissue paper in his pocket, which had spread to all the other clothes in the wash. What are you going to do about this? My favorite clothes were in that wash too. I've told you before to be careful about this, haven't I? This wasn't the first or second time John had done something like this. It wasn't frequent, but he tended to repeat the same mistake after being cautioned about it. Each time John messed up, I nagged him about it. At first, John would apologize, saying, "Sorry about that." But as it happened more and more, he started to grumble, "You don't need to say that much," and became less willing to listen to me. On this topic again, cut me some slack, I'm tired too. Isn't it part of a wife's role to cover the husband's mistakes? John said it as if it was my fault. But no matter how you look at it, it's absurd to blame me. Irritated by John's attitude, I retorted, "How is it okay to blame others? If you had just checked properly before doing the laundry, this wouldn't have happened, would it? I think the fault lies with you, John, for not correcting this despite being told multiple times." But then John, perhaps not wanting to hear any more, started ignoring me, focusing on his smartphone screen without any response. When the conversation turns inconvenient for him, John suddenly starts ignoring me, acting as if he isn't listening at all. This kind of treatment has become all too common since we got married, and I was painfully aware that it was pointless to continue the conversation. I let out a big sigh, and then he snapped, "Stop sighing. You're polluting the air in the house." His harsh words only made me feel worse. But I gathered my strength. I couldn't let it go this time. It's not just about this. As I said that, John looked up with a puzzled expression. Showing John the message screen with my father, I continued, "I heard from Dad. It seems like your performance at the company isn't very good. Dad came to me for consult." The message screen showed the conversation between my father and me about John. John was currently being mentored by one of the most capable people in the company, but it seemed there were significant problems with his attitude, and it had become a topic of discussion among the upper management. He doesn't take work seriously at all and is always looking at his smartphone whenever there's a spare moment. He doesn't take notice even when cautioned, and the moment you take your eyes off him, he's back to his phone. Instead of doing the work that needs to be done, he pushes it onto those in lower positions, trying to make it easy for himself. His attitude has become a concern for his mentor, And upon hearing this, my father felt the need to discuss with me what to do. My father is quite an accomplished individual in his work, and it must be really something significant for him to be troubled by it. In other words, John's behavior is exceptionally bad. Dad seems really troubled. There's talk about not making you the successor anymore and having my brother take over instead. What? That's not what was agreed upon. I married you because I was told I could be the successor. Go and make things right with your father right now. His words took me by surprise, and at the same time, I felt I knew it. After all, since we got married, there wasn't a single moment when John was kind to me. The last time John was kind to me was before we got married, when he was fervently courting me. Since the marriage, John didn't feel the need to feed a fish he has caught. He stopped being kind to me altogether. I had a hunch, but this confirmed that John was only interested in the position of a big company executive successor, and not at all in love with me. While I felt shocked, having sensed it all along, the pain wasn't as intense as it might have been. Maybe I had already given up somewhere deep down. I didn't have the confidence to continue this marriage with those feelings. Then, let's get divorced. When I brought that up, John asked, "Why? You love me, don't you? Won't you be the one who ends up hurting if we divorce?" John, under some misconception, declared that. I sternly replied to him, "Love, don't be ridiculous. My feelings for you have completely cooled off. So let's get divorced as soon as possible and be free. You'll have to give up your position as the successor, but that's fine, right? Yeah, that's fine. I'm sick of being tied to a boring woman like you anyway." The divorce was settled more cleanly than I thought. After that, we both started preparing for our divorce. The house was neither of ours to claim, so we decided to vacate it. Since most of the furniture was purchased by me, it was decided that I would take it. Though John seemed a bit dissatisfied with this arrangement. There were some disputes, but after everything was prepared, the divorce was finalized without any incidents. Surprisingly, the marriage, which had lasted for so long, ended without any fanfare. Yet, I felt neither sadness nor anxiety. In fact, I felt relieved to have cut ties with such an unpleasant person. However, a few days after the divorce, I felt something was amiss. A bank card that was in my wallet was missing. Since the beginning of our marriage, John frequently snooped in my wallet and stole what he needed. If it were any ordinary bank card, I wouldn't have complained. But this bank card was no ordinary one. If it had been stolen as usual, it could lead to a major problem. I immediately contacted John. John was on a trip to Dubai, and I would have to wait several more days to speak with him in person. Anxious to get the bank card back, I waited restlessly for his return. Finally, the day came when I was to meet John. We had arranged to meet at a cafe, and John arrived a little after the scheduled time. As soon as he sat down, I said, "Return the bank card." He handed over the item in question. "There's nothing like playing with someone else's money. Haha, good luck with the payments." Laughing, John revealed something outrageous. He had used the bank card to pay for a $33,000 expense on his Dubai trip. It's absurd to think of someone stealing a bank card and lavishly spending a large sum of money. I must impose a thorough punishment on John for his repeated atrocious behavior. With that determination in my heart, I spoke. But the card is in my wallet." When I said that, John looked confused and began to mock me with a laugh. Have you gone mad? The card you were just handed by me is your bank card, right? Have you finally lost your mind? Haha. But John was unaware of something very important. A crucial fact that could corner him completely in his life. Indeed, that card was in my wallet, but it's not mine. As I said that, John exclaimed in confusion. What? Yes, the card John had stolen and used freely was not mine. Why then was a card that wasn't mine in my wallet? There was a certain reason for this. Previously, my father Mike had come to visit our house, and he left behind his organizer, which contained his cards, at my place. Fortunately, the cards left behind were not used frequently, so there was no need for him to rush to retrieve them amidst his busy work schedule. And it was decided that I would hold onto them for a while. But leaving a bank card in a place where John could easily see it would be far too careless. With that thought, I had placed my father's bank card in my wallet. But John mistook it for mine, stole it, and spent $33,000. Of course, I contacted my father as soon as I realized his bank card was missing and reported the details of the incident. However, my father said, "I'll handle it on my end, you don't need to do anything," suggesting he had a plan, so I decided to just accept that and wait. Upon hearing my words, John's face turned pale. John had intended only to ensnare me. However, his plan did not work out, and instead, it was tightening the noose around his own neck. While John could act tough towards me, he couldn't maintain such an attitude in front of my father. My father, Mike, was an overwhelmingly superior presence, and John was not foolish enough to disrespect him. If he had treated me with even a shred of decency, this never would have happened. But regret is useless now. It's too late. Sorry, but you should prepare yourself. That's coming over soon. As I say that, John hastily begins to gather his things. It seems he is planning to run away. I felt it was really cunning of him to try and escape. Tucking his tail between his legs like this when it's time to face the consequences, he seated himself. I've always despised this about John. He sowed these seeds, and it's his fault things have come to this. Yet the moment he senses he's about to be blamed and everything is about to fall apart, he runs away, trying to turn a blind eye to his guilt. That's not right. Face up to what you've done. Understand the terrible thing you've committed. Running away is not what adults do. As I say that, John turns red with anger and shouts at me. Enough already. How much do you want to push me down? Marrying you was a mistake? Don't act so smug after wasting someone's time. With those words, John started to blame me. Blaming me is completely misplaced. No matter how much pressure he is under and how little room there is in his heart, all of this is a result of John's own actions. I have done nothing wrong. It's all John's fault. Yet, he speaks as if I'm the one to blame, pushing his own faults aside, acting as if he's completely innocent. I can't help but let out a deep sigh. Why did I ever marry a man like this? Ever since marrying John and being subjected to his dreadful behavior, I've regretted it over and over, and those regrets are flooding back to me now. If I hadn't married someone like John, surely I could have had a better life. There surely would have been someone kinder, someone who would really see me for who I am. Yet, to throw away even the chance for something better and continue to pour time and effort into such a worthless person was probably the most foolish thing anyone could do. Why couldn't I have seen John's true nature earlier? Why didn't I realize sooner the abnormality of John's actions? Perhaps the carelessness wasn't just on John's part, but mine as well. But it's too late for regrets now. The revenge play has already begun. The wasted time I spent on John is not coming back. And I can't undo the crimes John has committed. The time has come for us to drag each other down. Sensing that he can't escape my words any longer, John gives up trying to leave his seat and stays put. I felt it was a wise decision. If John had run now, Mike would surely have chased him to the ends of the world to make John atone for this matter. If that were to happen, John would suffer, and honestly, I can't imagine him making full amends for his actions. Until now, Mike hadn't come for John, perhaps as a token of thanks for being with me? Yet oblivious to such things, John gradually began to adopt an overbearing attitude. It's all your fault in the first place, if you keep your card in such an obvious place. Of course I'd think it's okay for me to use it. I've always hated that about you. Normally, using someone else's bank card is not right. Even if it belongs to a spouse, one should get permission beforehand. However, John used my cash card without my permission, as he pleased, all this time. That's why, even at the time of our divorce, it felt so natural for him to steal the bank card from my wallet, as if accepting a parting gift. I'm not in the wrong. It's all because of your sloppy management. You should be the one apologizing to your dad. I haven't done anything wrong. With those words, John insists, trying to escape the blame. Such an argument is so outrageous that I doubt he's in his right mind. It is too clear that John, the one who stole the bank card, is at fault. John has 100 faults for acquiring the habit of stealing bank cards without permission. There's nothing I've done wrong. Yet John tries to push the blame onto me. He says it's because of my sloppy management, but I had no such intention. And I believed I was treating my belongings normally. It's clearly John who is wrong for developing the habit of stealing. Why don't you just admit your sin for a change? But even when questioned, John shook his head. He doesn't seem to want to acknowledge what he has done. I sighed deeply, and at that moment, John visibly shuddered. I realized it's about time to make him face the reality of his actions. Just then, the final cast member appeared. Emily, sorry to keep you waiting. And John, it's been a while. Saying so, Mike approached us. John, who perhaps didn't expect him to actually come, turned pale upon seeing Mike's face. Father-in-law, it's been a long time. With that, John approaches Mike as if pittering him up, and signals for the waiter to order a drink for Mike. John's behavior had changed so suddenly from before. It made me let out a sigh of exasperation, to which John shuddered again, looking at me anxiously and asked, Emily, are you okay? That alone was immensely amusing to me. I've missed you since we got divorced, father-in-law. How have you been? John, while acting demure and subdued, rattled off as if he truly cared about Mike. From the outside, he might look like a considerate ex-husband concerned about his former father-in-law. But this rapid-fire talking is John's typical strategy to keep the conversation at his own pace and prevent the others from speaking. Of course, I knew it, and so did Mike, who frowned at John's words. But Mike was a company executive. He's seen his share of such behavior and won't be swayed by John. Opening his mouth to cut through the nonsense, enough with the pleasantries. John, do you understand what you've done? Using someone else's card without permission is wrong. Even someone as lazy as you should understand that, right? Mike's voice contained a mix of anger and intimidation. Even I, not being the one addressed, shivered at the tone of his voice. It was unlikely that John, sweating profusely, could remain sane as he meekly nodded. Yes, although John has such an awful attitude towards me. He has never dared to show such behavior in front of Mike. Mike is usually kind and considerate, but he is especially strict with those who disregard his kindness. Even as his daughter, the anger Mike shows is so frightening that even now as an adult, if he directs his anger at me, it makes me cry. John was trembling in front of an angry Mike. What you did is no different from being a thief. Had you still been Emily's spouse, maybe I could have forgiven you. But to me now, you are no more than a stranger. Do you understand what that means? At Mike's words, John's throat tightened. He must have understood what it meant naturally. Mike is likely to impose social sanctions on him. I heard that he has already consulted a lawyer, and John may have to repay the used-up $33,000. I hear John has been kicked out of Mike's company and is currently job hunting. There's no way John could pay such a large sum. If Mike doesn't forgive him here, John might end up in a debt hell. He has no future, especially since his job hunting isn't going well. And if he is burdened with this repayment, it's even worse. Realizing this, John sat on the floor and groveled. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought that card belonged to Emily, so if it belonged to my daughter, you thought it was okay to use it. Do you think such an excuse is acceptable? No. What I did was truly despicable. I'm really sorry. I'll be careful from now on. Please forgive me. I'll do anything, please. John was begging in tears. Mike looked at me with concern and asked, "What should we do?" With a cheerful smile, I responded, "I have no intention of forgiving such a lukewarm attitude. Let's show him the depths of hell." Despite John pleading desperately, "Please, I beg you," it was already too late. The gravity of what John had done, and above all, his attitude during our marriage, was something I just couldn't forgive. This was my modest revenge. Good luck. With those words, Mike and I left the cafe. John just sat there, looking utterly despairing about the future. Then, Mike had a lawyer proceed with the process of having John repay the embezzled $33,000. We managed to bill John successfully, but he kept pleading for forgiveness until the end. However, if it went to court, John's guilt would be clear. Realizing this, John created the money by incurring a significant debt, as Mike insisted, and paid the full $33,000 all in one pay. Now, we don't know where John is. Some friends say he's gone missing. I had my suspicions, but since it wasn't my problem anymore, I decided not to care. Now, I live with Dad. Although I caused him a lot of trouble, when I apologized, he said, "It's okay because you're my beloved daughter," and accepted everything. He is now over 80 and doesn't have much time left to live. That's why, as his daughter, I want to do my best to ensure he lives a life without regrets.